feast was held in the extravagant dining hall of the royal palace. The atmosphere was filled with loud conversations, laughter, and a sense of celebration. All eyes were on Leonardo, the recently married cruel prince, seated at the head of the long dining table. His emotionless gaze swept across the gathering, his cold blue eyes staring blankly into the distance. The guests were chatting and laughing, blissfully unaware of the forced marriage that had taken place. You see, for years now, the king had been trying his hardest to get his son to marry, but the cruel prince refused every princess he had ever met. It was so bad that he used to insult and belittle them, even threatened to cut their heads off. They all fled the kingdom, crying, screaming even. The king had had enough. The cruel prince no longer had a say in the matter. He was forced into an arranged marriage and was wedded to a princess, a beautiful, charming young lady from a kingdom far, far away. Leo sat stiffly in his ornate chair, jaw clenched, fingers wrapped tight around the stem of a wine glass. The firelight flickered across his pale face, sharpening every cold angle. You were seated beside him, close enough to be proper for royal eyes, but he made no move to touch you, not even a glance. Around the hall, drunk nobles swayed and giggled like children at some grand fairy tale wedding they'd only heard about in ballads.
Oh, how beautiful they look together.
I bet they're holding hands under the table.
Isn't she the most beautiful bride you have ever seen?
Oh yeah, he is one lucky guy, all right.
I can't believe she agreed to marry him. I thought the cruel prince was incapable of loving anyone.
Nonsense. It's young love. How adorable.
A few laughed. Others clutched their pearls, half scandalized by such honesty during celebration. But Leo didn't laugh back. He just slowly turned his head toward you, the barest shift, and said low enough for only your ears, "If one more fool calls this love, I'll have them hanged before dessert." His icy gaze snapped to you, brows furrowing slightly at the sound of your laughter. For a moment he just stared, like he couldn't decide if you were mocking him or genuinely amused. Then his lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. A flicker of something dangerous and rare. "You think I joke?" he murmured darkly, leaning in just enough that the scent of wine and winter clung to his breath. "I've killed for less." He watched as you took another sip from your glass before muttering under his breath, "Though perhaps I'll spare them tonight. Only because watching drunken fools embarrass themselves is more entertaining than murder." He tilted his head, leaning even closer. His eyes flicked over you, taking in every detail like a hawk hunting its prey. His expression remained stoic, but his gaze was sharp, curious even. He noticed your slight reaction, your trembling. This time he smirked, a genuine smirk that was both dangerous and almost amused. The firelight caught the hard edge of his jaw and gave a soft glow to his white hair. "Scared of me?" The smirk on his face widened at your little stutter. His gaze was fixed firmly on your face now, eyes tracing the soft curve of your cheek and landing on your trembling mouth. He had you in his grasp without even touching you. A low chuckle escaped him, rough and almost guttural. He leaned forward once more, closer than he should, his gaze still fixed on your mouth. He spoke in a husky voice that was barely above a whisper. "Is my new little wife so frightened of her husband?" He raised one eyebrow at your blatant lie. His sharp eyes followed the movement of your fingers as you picked up the wine glass. The way they trembled slightly didn't go unnoticed by him. "Liar," he stated bluntly. He leaned back against the chair, crossing his arms over his chest. His gaze remained fixed on your face, noting the way you avoided his eyes. "I can see your hands trembling, dearest. Your heartbeat is racing, your breathing quickened." His expression darkened at your obvious fear. The firelight cast shadows across his sharp features, making him look even more dangerous and unpredictable than before. "You're still ignoring me," he murmured in a low voice. That's very unwise of you. He slowly reached out and grabbed your chin between his fingers, forcing you to meet his piercing blue eyes. Look at me when I'm speaking to you, wife. The other guests at the feast took notice of the tense moment. A hush fell over them as they watched the cruel prince seize your chin between his fingers. Some looked away uncomfortably, while others couldn't help but gawk, as if the air itself was holding its breath. A few people looked to each other, wide-eyed, and whispered,
She looks terrified.
Look at how he's treating his new wife.
Oh no, what will he do now?
Leo released your chin with a sharp flick of his fingers, like he'd been burned by the mere contact. His expression twisted into something cold and murderous as he slowly turned his head toward the gawking crowd. The room fell dead silent. Not even the clinking of silverware dared to break it. His voice cut through like a blade. Do you all have nothing better to do than watch? A noble in front nearly choked on their wine, scrambling back in their seat with wide eyes. Another quickly pretended they hadn't been staring at all, suddenly very interested in their plate. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The threat was clear. Keep looking, and I'll remove those eyes from your skull. With that single glare, every guest snapped back into forced celebration, as if nothing had happened at all. He turned his gaze back to you, his shoulders slumping just slightly. The anger and tension ebbed away, replaced by weary resignation. Don't feel sorry for them, he muttered, more to himself than to you. His gaze softened just a fraction as he looked at you, almost, not quite, sympathetic. He sighed deeply, rubbing his forehead as if he had a headache, though whether it was from too much alcohol or from the whole situation you couldn't say. They're all fools and gossip mongers. His gaze locked onto yours, his blue eyes searching yours for something. Understanding, maybe? He shifted in his chair, leaning forward once more, closer than before. He watched you carefully, that faint flicker of curiosity back in his gaze. Come now, he repeated quietly. Speak to me. My wife should at least be able to talk. There was a hint of command in his words, but not quite. He wanted you to willingly speak, wanted it badly. He tilted his head to the side, watching you like a wolf watching its prey. He didn't answer for a moment, his gaze roaming over your face, down your throat, and across your bare shoulders. He looked for a lie, a hint of deception. When he found none, he sighed softly, leaning back into his chair. No, I don't want your lies, wife. He took a slow sip of wine, his eyes never leaving you. Tell me the truth. How do you feel about this marriage? His eyes darkened slightly at your choice of words, cage. It was almost accurate. A cruel twist of fate that he was the one trapping you. A cage, huh? He murmured, swirling the wine in his glass. He took another slow sip before setting it down, his gaze still on you. His expression betrayed nothing, yet his eyes, they held something different in them now. And I assume I'm the bars that keep you imprisoned, no? He smirked faintly at your sigh, a hint of dark humor in his gaze. He leaned in again, his voice a low murmur that barely reached your ears. You think you're trapped, wife? You're not the only one in a cage here. I was forced into this marriage just as much as you were. He lifted the glass to his lips again, taking a sip, his eyes never leaving yours. Neither of us had a choice. We're both captives of circumstance. His smirk faded, replaced by a bitter edge in his voice. The coldness returned, like a mask slipping back into place. You think I wanted this? He repeated, almost mockingly. To be locked in a loveless marriage with a woman I barely know. To have my life shackled to another's, for the sake of my father's political ambitions? He shook his head, downing the rest of his wine in one gulp. This is as much punishment for me as it is for you, wife. He caught the soft whisper. his gaze snapping back to you with a sharp intensity. A hint of annoyance flickered across his face. "And why is that?" he replied, his voice a low rumble. "You think I'm enjoying this? You think I wouldn't rather be free to live my life as I please?" He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest, his eyes never leaving yours. "You don't know me, wife. Don't pretend otherwise." A cruel smirk twisted his lips, an edge of mockery in his gaze. He leaned back in his chair, fingers curled tightly around his empty wine glass as he eyed you with a cold, calculating expression. "Consider yourself lucky," he repeated, voice low and dark, "that I'm not quite as ruthless with you. I threatened the past princesses who dared to step foot in my kingdom to the point of fear. You're still alive, aren't you, wife?" He met your hard look with an unyielding gaze. The muscles in his jaw ticked with irritation, his fingers clenching the wine glass in his hand tighter. For a moment, he didn't say anything. He simply stared at you, studying you intently. You could almost feel the tension crackling between you two like electricity. "Threaten," he finally replied, his voice low and almost mocking. "No, I'm merely stating the fact, wife. You're still breathing. Take that as a mercy." His gaze darkened at your challenge, his jaw tightening. He leaned forward, his hand still gripping the wine glass with whitening knuckles. "Forget myself?" he repeated, his voice deathly calm. "I forget nothing. I have every right to speak as I please, especially to you." His eyes bore into yours, cold and calculated. "You'd do well to remember that, wife." He let out a sharp, almost frustrated exhale through his nose. The way you turned away, ignoring him again, sent an unexpected flicker of irritation through him. "You're doing it again," he muttered, voice low and edged with something between annoyance and curiosity. "Ignoring me like I'm some nuisance to be brushed aside." His fingers tapped once against the tabletop before he abruptly stood up from his seat. "Fine. If that's how you wish to play this game." His voice cut through the drunken revelry like a blade, sharp and unyielding. The hall fell silent instantly. "The celebration is over." Guests scrambled to their feet, bowing hastily as they hurried out of the room. He turned slowly toward you. A smirk curled at one corner of his lips, and then he murmured low enough for only your ears, "My wife and I have a wedding night to spend together."